Welcome to the Maximize Business Value podcast, brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners like you to maximize your business value and achieve the exit of your dreams, whatever that means to you. With insights gained from over 100 business transactions, we share real-world strategies, lessons, and expert advice to help you build long-term, sustainable value in your business. Each episode is hosted by one of our Mastery certified partners. They're seasoned experts who've helped countless business owners navigate the complexities of growth, scaling, and building value. They bring first-hand experience, actionable insights, and a passion for helping you build a business that thrives. So let's dive in.
This episode is the second of a two-part release. To hear part one, follow the link below. Thank you for listening to the Maximize Business Value podcast.
Probably one that business owners don't think about as much because that, I've always had this relationship. Why would that go away? Not thinking of the fact that maybe part of that relationship is because of them. And if they sell the company and go away, then, and certainly the buyer's keen to that, I would imagine, and to say, okay, who owns that relationship with the big client?
Yeah.
Is that you? Is that a frontline salesperson? Is that a team of people on your side?
And that tends to be a more and more popular question that I see is not just what are your sales, but who's managing those sales?
Yeah.
How much of it do you, Mr. Owner, Mrs. Owner, how much do you call on and reach out and reach contact? So, we always tell people, you need to get yourself, as you're building the value in your business, get yourself further and further out of the day-to-day activities.
Yeah,
So
and boy, it's hard to do. I went through that process. And even when I brought in a couple of years before I sold the company, I brought in a top-notch sales manager, and he did wonders for us in terms of building our systems and processes, hiring really well, hiring really smart, great people to work for us, and cheering them on and pouring into them. He just did a super job. So it got me out of the day-to-day with virtually all of our accounts. But some of those companies remember that they originally bought from me, and I think if they were interviewed by a prospective buyer, for example, and just say, so tell us about your relationship. They go, well, man, we've done business with Dave forever, and I know we're dealing with his team now, but Dave's the guy, So and that, not knowing that could hurt us much more than help, So,
no, because you think all along, you're building this and you're building that relationship, and it's hard to not let that happen, but you just being aware of concentration will help people, I think.
So we've covered kind of some of the challenges with due diligence. So what have you seen? What makes the due diligence process smoother? When you go through one and say, "Wow, that was the way it's supposed to be." So,
well, you guys actually help that a tremendous amount.
Oh, that's going to tie into a future question I have. So that's good. That's good to know.
Because I'll give away the answer. When you guys are in there ahead of time, you help bring that understanding of what the road ahead looks like.
Yeah.
You help identify some of the potholes that need to be filled. And so by the time it comes to us later on, then we can go back and just make sure that all that stuff's still working, it's in place, nothing new's come up. Did that fix, like I said, sometimes you do a fix and you create another issue. It's like peeling an onion. There's always another layer. But and so that's a big help, I think.
Yeah.
You guys getting companies prepared and getting people to talk about what they want to do after transition.
Yeah.
Because by the time you get into selling the company, if that's when you need to figure out how much money you you need to live on, it's a little late,
Yeah.
got the
Yeah.
cart and the horse in the wrong order.
Yeah.
Um, because you want to make sure that the value you're building is getting to a level that, hey, one day when I sell this, I will be able to retire.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
You know?
Knowing those answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the reasons that I'm working with Mastery Partners is this is the intriguing aspect to me. And I'm just going to put myself back in that seat of owning a business, having, founded and built the business over decades, in our case, a couple
Yeah.
decades. And when it came time to consider transitioning the business, um, I had been heads down in the business. I had never really, I had a rough idea. I knew that there were financial buyers, strategic buyers. There was such a thing as private equity. We were kind of below the private equity
Yeah.
line that we weren't going to have any interest there. But I kind of rough idea what it took. But what I didn't understand was, just that all those pieces and parts and how much weight to give them,
Yeah.
I figured out, well, okay, I need to get myself out of the day to day. I'm pretty successful at doing that. We were running we were actually running on Peachtree software. This is before QuickBooks was as
Yeah.
ubiquitous as it is today. And we had a great system. I mean, our CPA was comfortable with it. We were comfortable with it. Everything worked well. And then we changed over to Great Plains, which was a Microsoft company, and
Yeah.
we were kind of using the Microsoft suite top to bottom. So that was part of what we did. And again, once we got that transition done, I think we had very solid, very clean financials and easy to read, and our GL made sense and all that good stuff. Then so I thought we did a lot of things right. We managed inventory correctly. But then it turns out when we got into due diligence, some things got uncovered that I didn't anticipate. A lot of it had to do with HR, really the way we handled employee reviews and career path, you know,
Yeah.
written job descriptions for every job and just testing and all kinds of things to do with HR. We were weak in. I think, and then we had great sales and great margins and all that, but just a few folks contributing to that. So we had some
Yeah.
people on the sales team that weren't big contributors. And now a couple were brand new, so those are easy to say, well, they're brand new. They just haven't had a chance to contribute. A couple have been there a while.
Yeah.
And that was literally, the buyer's like, why is this guy here? Why are you paying this guy?
You
So
know, you touched on two things that are key. I talk about getting data and having a good system. So a lot of people now are starting to see the importance of that. And so they might transition from,
mm,
their old system to a QuickBooks or to a Oracle or just some other
yeah,
bigger, larger, NetSuite,
a little more sophisticated.
a little more sophisticated. But what I find all too often is they move to a new system, but they let their old processes, they don't change.
Yeah,
So all they're getting is the same old data out of the brand new expensive system
yeah,
instead of taking advantages of the new features of the new system. It's a little more work, but
yeah,
definitely, but you lose the value in spending all that money to go to a new system if you don't focus on the bells and whistles of it. You don't want the system to drive your business, but you want to get the right data out of your business
yeah.
into the system.
Yeah, and I think we were guilty, and I'm sure you've seen this of we established some KPIs and we dug into those and we kind of ran the business using those KPIs. But we weren't always cognizant of what else should we be measuring. Or as the
Yeah,
business changed and we moved, like, for example, more from a product focus to a services focus, that brings about different KPIs.
yeah,
Customer satisfaction becomes really important. Things like
Your KPIs can change or should
yeah,
change as your
yeah,
business
they
model
should.
changes.
Yeah, and was a challenge that we were good at following what we were doing. We just weren't looking for what's next, and I think
And
that's a
and
problem.
the HR side is something that's I see more and more now because you take a small mom and pop shop and
Mhm.
they're being bought up by a company that has 150, 200 people. Now that puts a whole new spotlight on
Yeah.
HR regulations.
Oh, yeah.
And, and so there's a whole new look at I-9s and
Yeah.
just because this guy showed up for the past 4 years every day and never missed a day, but you don't have the right paperwork,
Hmm.
it's a problem for the new buyer.
Yep.
And then just the whole reporting process and review process
Yeah.
and hierarchies. It's uh, I know Mastery's got some people that they can refer in to just help businesses take a look at their HR side,
Yeah.
and I
Yep.
highly recommend that. Um,
It
because
is, and
all due diligence is going to do is highlight.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and I think certainly it was my case, and I've seen it a lot. And I'd say companies anywhere between 2 or 3 million up to 15 million or so in revenue. It is, your people are probably the most expensive part of the whole enchilada
yeah,
and the most overlooked, in terms of doing it the right way.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's certainly a challenge. So when you're performing due diligence and I'll paint the picture that Mastery has worked with a client, and we've kind of hopefully we've identified challenge areas that they had and established a game plan to get those things resolved. Um, when you do due diligence, when do you know that that company is now ready to go to the next step in the process?
Well, I'd say the easy answer is when we've answered all the questions.
Hmm.
But um, I think it's really, I said earlier that, I like to, you know, analyze things, identify the positives and negatives, and solve and
Yeah.
implement changes. So once you go through the diligence process and you're able to thoroughly understand and explain the past, and then be able to articulate a good, clear path forward for buyers, you've made it through the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
You understand where you've been and you've got everybody else on board with that,
Yep.
and you've presented it. So hopefully there'll be no surprises and no one wanting to adjust. I mean, that was a something that when I previously worked for a publicly traded company, we used that to our advantage, was to bring up surprises at the last minute
Yep.
and make value changes.
Yeah.
People still do that,
That happens.
because last minute,
Yep.
now you, a seller, are extremely committed. You've been through this, you're worn out, you're ready to be done. Okay, I'll take a hit.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
and by
yeah,
that time, either formally or informally, everybody at the company knows the process is underway,
yeah,
and that we're headed for this,
yeah.
and the
And so
buyer knows
then,
that too. And so,
oh yeah,
we dodged a bullet very early on in our existence. We had a couple of good years in a row, and we had a company approach us, and they were rolling up companies like ours, and
yeah,
they had already taken over three companies that we knew very well, and we knew the principals, and so these guys said, these are guys that actually they bought a public shell company and then remade it into this acquisition engine, if you will. And I'll tell you how long ago this was. This is when pooling of interests was the way that you combine things.
yeah.
So you remember that term. So
Yes, yes.
so I knew that would bring a smile to your face.
Yeah.
That was it. So anyway, these guys, and they were really sharp because they came in. We love what you're doing. We've bought three companies already in your space. You know the companies and you know the principals, And a lot of it was this, it's a stock sale. I mean, a stock transaction. We weren't getting a whole lot of cash. We were getting mostly
Yeah.
stock. And so they put it all together, and the other guys were like, "Yeah, I mean, we came in, the stock was at $2, and it's now at $6, and we're feeling high on the hog, and yeah, we got a little bit of cash out of there, but look at our net worth with this stock." And so we got really close on the transaction, and and this is fortuitous. This is a good news, bad news. We had our top salesman leave pretty abruptly. He was recruited away, not by a competitor of us at all. He was recruited away by a manufacturer, so a whole different world. And he was recruited away, and this was a manufacturer that was about to go public, and this is during the tech boom when that was the holy grail. Is you lose money as fast as you can until you IPO, and then you just it was all that stuff. So it was so funny, and so they came in and tried to recast everything. Your top salesman left. Oh, numbers are all changing. So we said okay, and we're good. We're not going to do this deal. We walked away. So less than a year later, that whole thing collapsed. My buddies that had sold to them largely for stock ended up with zero.
Yeah.
Whatever little money they got at closing is what they got, and they got nothing else for the rest of their company, and they had to start all over again. And it was scary.
We tell people nowadays, focus on cash at closing.
Yes.
If you never get another dime, are you happy?
Yeah.
Because I went through that before, where we bought a lot of companies for stock, almost all stock.
Yep.
And then the stock dropped.
Yep.
And people just lose their, not that stock's a bad thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it can be a very good thing, but
Yeah.
it's money at risk.
Yeah, it is.
Where cash in your hand isn't money at risk anymore. I mean, you've got that value. And then if you've got potential upside, that's great. Make sure that terms for that upside are achievable.
Yeah. Yep.
That are all things that you can affect. We tell people that all the time. You don't go on a net profit, because
you can't.
Once you're not in control,
no
you're
control
not in
there.
control.
Yep.
So
yeah, and there's terms in there you have to be careful of, because we kind of operated. I operated on I focus on gross profit in my company. I said I don't really care about top line. I care about gross profit, and then from that number, I can manipulate or control my expenses and so on, and spending.
Manipulate's not good.
To get from a gross profit to a net profit, I can control that. Once I sold my company, I stayed on it actually for 4 years and ran a division, if you will. And there was operating profit is what they used. It wasn't net profit. It was operating.
Right.
I said, well, how are you defining that? And where is my input in there, right? And because they took out, so much for doing payroll processing, and so much for this and so much for that. And those are all out of my control. I mean, they can start at one number and grow to a different number. And, benefits, we're increasing our benefits. Great. How does that affect me? Well, it lowers your profit. So, I mean, it's,
and I think that's a big advantage for North Star, is that Tom, Jeremy, and myself all have really extensive histories in business and transactions and different types of businesses, not just medical or
right
distribution.
All over the map. Yeah.
All over the map. And so we understand a lot of those terms and understand things to look out for.
Yeah.
Try to help people and guide people with that, because that's key. And that you asked me earlier something about something that shows up in diligence that I just thought about, that has happened a number of times. And again, it's warning people against trying to do it all on your own, because the diligence process can take months from when people start initially looking to when they put in offers until they finish their diligence. So it's been a long time span. And if an owner's trying to manage all that themselves, all of a sudden they take their eye off the sales and the
Yes.
profitability. So then everything gets refreshed
Yep.
at the end. And that refresh sometimes looks totally different than where it started.
You were rocking along here. What happened?
Yeah. And then what happened? So, oh, then, well, that's
when we
a
started the
significant
process.
change. So now we're going to go in and revalue.
Yeah,
that happens.
The numbers get averaged out, but the most recent numbers have the highest weight to them. So
yes, they do.
One of those deals.
And so I try to tell people that, you got to stay focused on that. That's our job as a company.
Yeah, let us do that.
Is to take care of everything else. You just stay focused on the business, and we'll try to pull everything we can. Even through diligence, if we get access, I'm going to ask people to give me access to their QuickBooks. I'll pull all the reporting.
Yeah.
I can pull all the data, and I can look at how they got to that. I can tear down to see what it looks like.
They may be surprised.
Ask questions.
They may be surprised at what you come back with.
Yes. Sometimes they are. They're like, "Where's that at?" I'm like, "It's right here." And they'll be like, "Well, that's not what's supposed to be there." And I'm like, "Well, that's what is there. So let's."
That's what I've been making my decisions based on. So.
Yeah. So
wow. So having seen this, and I think over the years, I mean, you've got a little bit of gray hair. I've got a little bit of hair, period. But what's the one most important thing that because this is the Maximize Business Value podcast, that's the title.
Yes.
What's the most important thing that you recommend that business owners do to build value in their business? If you could identify.
I think, if I asked to tell someone is get a realistic understanding of what the value is of your business. Everybody tells me, if I had a nickel for every time I hear this, we wouldn't have this conversation because I'd be someplace else, vacationing. But people always, my business is different and unique and special, and it is, but it's not. And so understanding a good value of your business so that you see it on paper compared to what you think it's worth. And then understanding, okay, if there's a variance there, and there will be in general, now figure out, how do I get to that number that I want to be at?
Yeah.
Is that through deeper dive into my financials and my margins, or is it, new product, new lines, whatever it might be, but understand.
So knowing where they are, really, and a
lot
of
where you're at today and where you want the end goal to be.
Yeah.
That way you've got a place to get to, and right now you probably think you're already there, but you might not be. And if you are, then it's simple.
That's great. Yeah.
So,
and if we agree that you are, so
yes,
would be the other thing. Well, that's awesome, because that's kind of what I suspected you might come back with, because it's I mean, at the end of the day, it's the numbers. It really is. I mean, a lot of things factor into valuation that we talked about, that customer concentration, owner dependency. There's all these other things, but the starting of all of that is the numbers, and really where are you, in the grand scheme of things. And I can say there's several folks that we've worked with in the last couple of years that at the outset thought they knew that number and where they were, and it turned out they weren't even close. And part of it is the age old, well, Bobby sold his business and mine's better than his, and I know what he got for his, at least what he said he got for his, so he bought a new car, so he must have done well.
And we always say that, the ultimate value for a business is what somebody's willing to pay. And if somebody wants your space, or they want to add your niche to their portfolio, that's totally different. They might overpay, hoping that they'll.
And I've seen it both ways. I've seen it where people overpaid, what I consider overpaid, but the business owner did really, really well, unexpectedly, I would say. And then there's others where they just they either had to take a short number, or they had to go back to the drawing board and say, well, we'll do this again in a couple of years,
Yeah. And what you don't want to do is decide, okay, I'm maxed out, I'm done, I need to sell.
Yeah.
Then it's not going to be in your interest. You need to be
No.
proactive.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Man, John, I can't thank you enough. As usual, your insights and experience are really valuable. And
Well, I appreciate it. I wasn't sure if I was going to bring any good value to this, but I enjoyed it.
yeah, it is fun.
Yeah, people have questions. I mean, yeah, they can sure reach out to us.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that, well, when this gets published, all the ways to reach will be there for sure. And so this, for those that have been tuning in, this is the Maximize Business Value podcast, and we give practical advice to business owners that are really serious about building long-term sustainable value in their business. We do one of these each week, so make sure you like us, subscribe, tune in. We're available on all the podcast platforms, so we're easy to find. And we'll ask you to tune in next week when we have a new guest. Until then, I'm Dave Casey, and we'll see you next time.
Very good.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Maximize Business Value podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas on how you can continue driving value in your business. But remember, it's not just about listening. It's about taking massive action. Visit our website, masterypartners.com, for more resources. Grab a copy of any of the books in the Maximize Business Value series on Amazon or via the links below. And don't hesitate to reach out if you want to know how to apply these concepts to your business. So until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to relentlessly execute while you maximize business value.